Welcome to New York's #2 sports show. The Rangers lose to the Florida Panthers 4-2 at Madison Square Garden. And yeah, this was a frustrating result. The Rangers really played pretty well, relatively speaking, for the first couple periods. It was an even game. And in the third period, the Rangers allow a goal that wasn't great. Igor, who had a really good game and has been really good lately, gives up just a bad one to Ryan Lomberg. And so that allowed Florida to play more of a defensive style, clog the neutral zone, make it really tough. The Rangers were not able to work through that. And you don't love to see that because that is like playoff style hockey. And so it's tough. If the Rangers had won this game in regulation, then they would have actually technically been in first in the National Hockey League on March 4th. But that doesn't happen. This was the last game before the trade deadline. Rangers don't play again until Saturday. The deadline's on Friday. And yeah, I think that the Florida Panthers are the best team in the league. Not by a wide margin, but I think any way you look at it, they are the team to beat. They did make the final last year. A very impressive, unexpected run that they had. Very impressed by that, by the Florida Panthers. I really am. Any unit you want to look at, and if Bobrovsky's playing well, they yet again can definitely make a run. So that is the team to beat. But at the same time, can the Rangers beat them in a 7-game series? They can. If you had to ask me now who I think would win, obviously I'd say Florida. They've been really good lately. Panthers are great on the road as well. But yeah, it was a game that the Rangers could have won. 5-on-5 chances are just, they come few and far between. The Panthers are such a good defensive sound squad that it's tough. And let's start talking about some players. And in no particular order, just what comes to mind. Artemi Panarin, the thing with him is what I want to see is when the space isn't there, what is he going to do in the playoffs? And this was as close to a playoff preview as you'll get. And he was just a bit off tonight. And he has been this team's MVP this season by far. As much as Vincent Trocheck has had a career year and there's other players we can speak about, Panarin has been brilliant and great. And, you look at the Rangers' record and where they are in the standings, he is the biggest reason why they're there. But it's just something to think about. And while I'd like to think that Panarin can reverse his postseason demons, a game like tonight doesn't really make me feel too good about that, but we'll leave that there. Again, the fact that Mika Zibanejad has not scored a 5-on-5 goal since Christmas is scary. We're coming up on like almost 30 games in that span, and Zibanejad was not terrible in this game. I saw his partner in crime, Chris Kreider, even though he scored a power play goal, I thought Kreider was one of those head case games for him where it's like the second goal that the Panthers scored, the second Reinhart goal, the Panthers rim it around the boards in the Rangers zone, and Kreider just kind of looking at it instead of going to the player who was coming in from the point. It might have been Forsling or Barkov. I'm not sure who it was, but Kreider just like a little bit too slow to react. It's just, you get that too much from him. And while I think he's had a good season for sure, just his whole career, it's just sometimes you just wonder what's going on in his head. And I thought that just there was a lack of intensity in his game, and that was frustrating. You look at the bottom six. They made a switch where Goodrow moved up to play with Cooley and Vesey, and Brodzinski slotted down with Edstrom and Rempe. It's, one of those lines, like I guess the Goodrow one, like, all right, like that could be a fourth line, right? Like Cooley, Goodrow, Vesey. That's while it's got its holes, it's reasonable. But then like the other one, like, and Rempe has become a crowd favorite. He has been. He did take a penalty that did lead to a goal. Maybe it was a questionable call. I didn't have such a problem with that call. But at the same time, I think we all kind of know that Rempe is not going to be a huge player, if at all, in the playoffs. So the Rangers, they have acquisitions they need to make. Kakko with Zibanejad and Kreider doesn't work. But with that being said, I really would want to see Mika and Kreider split up. I'm not confident that's going to happen, but I think Kakko, it's just better if you have him on a third line and acquire someone who is going to take that spot with Kreider and Zibanejad. So it's a lot of the same topics of conversation. Defensively, Ryan Lindgren, I feel like his play has not been wonderful, and you got to think he's playing with injuries. It's just like the way it is with Lindgren. But I feel like he is what he is, and he's a heart and soul guy, and so it's tough to come down on him. But I think that Lindgren's game, I think it's seen better days. Jacob Trouba, he started off the game well and kind of dropped off as the game went on. And, Igor was good besides that really, really bad goal that cost them the game. It's an inexcusable goal. We'll talk about that goal once we get there. But, yeah, they're going to have to go after a center, a right wing, and a defenseman. And I think they will, to varying degrees of importance. But I think that Chris Drury, whether that be 2 trades, 3 trades, something like that, we are going to see some new faces in here. And thus, players will be likely sent down. There is always the chance of players being traded out. That's possible if they are on the fringes of the roster. I guess you can't rule that out, but it will be very interesting to see what happens this week as far as the Rangers roster is concerned. So Panthers-Rangers, like I said, a battle for first in the league, not just the Eastern Conference, but all of the NHL. And I thought that the Rangers held their own. Were they great? No. But I thought that they did enough to win, to put themselves in a position to win the game. And there was a lot of physicality. Both teams kind of knew what was at stake. And what's tough is the Rangers lost to Florida 4-3 in Florida on December 29th. So there's only one more game. It's at MSG, and it's about 3 weeks from now. And that's going to be an important one because you don't want to go 0-3 against the Panthers. And, so that's for another day. But like I've talked about, the Rangers, the only team that the Rangers lost to and will not beat this year was Vegas, who they played twice as their Western Conference opponent. And Vegas that's going to be a team to look out for come playoff time. Florida, the same thing. Those were the 2 finalists last year. So, first period, let's jump to later in the period. At 14:39, Matt Tkachuk roughs Adam Fox. So they were kind of going at it. And that's the thing, like Fox was kind of, getting involved in the rough stuff, and same thing with Panarin, like players that you don't normally see were getting involved in that way. And, previously in the game, you could tell Fox and Tkachuk, had words with each other and got a little bit physical, but eventually Fox hits Tkachuk. Tkachuk finally realizes it and starts kind of, punching Fox a little bit. You couldn't really see because it was right like near the Panthers bench. But he's called for that penalty. And it was not a good power play for the Rangers. And at the very end of it, the Rangers basically put on their third line. Like it was at that point, with 20 seconds left, they scrapped the power play units. And so what ends up happening is Will Cooley, who's not on the power play 2 anymore, he does score his first power play goal of his career, his 11th goal of the season from Trouba and Miller. So it's 16:39. It goes down as a power play goal. and it was just passing from point to point from Miller to Trouba. Trouba takes a shot. Bobrovsky can't track it, and Cooley on a backhand gets it through the legs of Bobrovsky and in. What I'll say about Cooley is I've noticed, and it's a good thing, he has scored some pretty big goals this season against good teams. I think about like the one against Carolina comes to mind earlier in the season for sure, but there was another one somewhat recently at MSG against a good team. It might have been the Calgary game. Now, obviously, Calgary isn't a great team, but it was a low-scoring, hard-to-get chances game. And I think that Cooley, don't be surprised if he, in his career, hopefully sooner than later, in the playoffs, chips in with some big goals because of the style of play that he has, that he's in front of the net like that. So that makes it 1-0 Rangers. Then they get another power play chance. It's 17-15. Stenlund hooks Zibanejad. And I'll give Zibanejad credit, like I've been saying recently. He's been drawing a lot of power plays, but the power play does not score there. And then in 1922, Edstrom interferes with Carter Verhaeghe. So this is a Panther power play that goes into the second period. Rangers do kill it off. Unfortunately, they start taking too many penalties, and it does eventually bite them. Trouba trips Barkov at 6:58. Truba's got to do a better job of staying out of the box. I've seen more penalties from him lately. Rangers kill it off, but then soon thereafter, 9:18, Rempe trips Luostarinen. So, it was a questionable call. Like I said, I didn't have a huge problem with it, and it's the way Rempe plays that leads to that. It's tough to come down on him, but it is what it is. And at 10-11, it's a goal by Sam Reinhart, who has just been absolutely insane this season. So that's his 43rd goal of the season from Barkov and Verhaeghe. He's scoring on the power play like crazy. At this point, he is close to on pace for 60 goals. His career high going into the season was 33 goals. So the closest comp is Kreider, but it's to a further extent, where Kreider never reached 30, but always was high 20s. And then a few years ago, he got, 52 goals? Reinhardt's a little bit above that. And a power play force. A really crazy, great play by Barkov. And more credit goes to Barkov. I feel like with Keandre Miller and Trocheck on that play, a little bit too much stick checking. I wish that there was a little bit more, taking the body, but at the same time, not much you can do about it. Reinhardt scores, and so that Rempe penalty leads to a goal, makes it 1-1. And then at 12:56, Reinhardt scores again. 44th goal of the season from Barkov and Forsling. And a nice setup by Barkov to Reinhardt in the slot, and he snaps it past Shesterkin. And this was where, again, I feel like Kreider should have been going to the boards with a little bit more intensity. And like I've said, the good thing about this Zibanejad line, even though they have been producing 5-on-5 offensively, they've been good on the defensive side. Well, there, not so much the case, and it makes it 2-1 Florida. But then Anton Lundell is called for a double minor high sticking against Braden Schneider. So Schneider was bleeding on the play, leads to a 4-minute power play. The Rangers do tie it up and score on it. Kreider gets his 31st of the season from Trocheck and Panarin. So nice job by Kreider in front, corralling the puck, holding it, and scoring past Bobrovsky. And they actually scored in the first half of that 2-minute of the 4-minute power play. So they had another 2 minutes. Didn't score on that, but it did tie it up at 2. And so we go into the third, 2-2. And what I should also mention, and the stat was confirmed that I mentioned last episode, was the Rangers going into the last game were 7-0 when tied going to the third. Well, now they're 7-1-1. Obviously, last game losing the shootout, and today they would lose in regulation. So that was unfortunate too. And especially, I feel like a lot of those games were home. I don't have the stats to back it up, but I'm pretty sure a lot of those tie games going to the third were home games. The Rangers have been a good home team, but the Panthers on the road are so good. And what happens early-ish in the third, about 6 minutes in, you have a play where Brodzinski is trying to go into the offensive zone. He's kind of taken down. And a call, they probably should have blew the whistle. It probably should have been a penalty. But they decide not to, and they go the other way. And Lomberg takes just a very innocent, soft wrist shot that goes through the legs of Jacob Trouba. It does ricochet slightly off of him. But it's one that Igor has to stop. I couldn't believe it went by him. It was too far out. You can't let that happen. Some blame to go around, whether you want to blame the refs, you want to put a little blame to Trouba. I think most of it has got to go to Shesterkin. And that really sucked the life out of the building. Gave the Panthers a 3-2 lead. And then at that point, the Rangers did have some chances along the way. There was a lot of time left, but Florida really, really clamped down. And that sucked to see. The Rangers could not get through them. The transformation of the Florida Panthers is pretty remarkable, where, they were a team that had not won a playoff series in a long, long time. I mean, 96 had been the last time until they finally won a playoff series a couple seasons ago. And their strength was offense when they got good a few years ago. Then all of a sudden, it really kind of, to me, happened in the playoffs last year under Paul Maurice. They've learned to kind of be more of a defensive first team, but still a lot of skill. They're pretty scary. And again, if there's a team to beat, it's probably them, even though it's a wide open year. So eventually the Rangers pull the goalie. Now, last game, they did tie it up on a 6-on-5. Not meant to be this time. Adam Fox keeps it in, but then turns it over. And then Anton Lundell puts the icing on the cake. Ninth goal of the season, that empty net goal from Ekman Larson at 19:01, and the Panthers win 4-2. So this one hurts for sure. Losing at home to the Panthers, a game that you knew was going to be difficult, but Florida shows that they are right now the best team. So the Rangers' record drops to 18-4, which is really good. 62 games, 84 points. They sit 6 points ahead of Carolina. Carolina does have a game in hand, so the division race is still certainly up for grabs. Rangers have the slight edge, but, far from over there. And, things are definitely, we'll see these last 20 games, still a lot to be determined as far as seeding and all that good stuff. And like I said, this week, we will find out what Chris Drury decides to do. There is rumors surrounding Alex Wenberg, and Larry Brooks was the first to report it a few weeks ago. The center from the Seattle Kraken is not playing in tonight's game against Calgary due to the fact that, for trade-related reasons. So he's going to be traded. I wouldn't be surprised if it ends up being the Rangers. I'm not going to get too far into it because A, it hasn't happened, and B, if it does, then I will be doing an episode on it. Please like and subscribe. That would be greatly appreciated, as this week will be full of Ranger content, as I hope to discuss multiple trades. There's a lot of talk about Frank Vatrano, which I have mixed feelings on that. I really liked Vatrano a couple years ago, but I feel like the asking price can be pretty high for someone that you could have theoretically re-signed. So not sure how to feel about that, but I would expect the trades to start trickling in, definitely sooner than later. But unfortunately, the Rangers do fall to the Florida Panthers. They lose 4-2 at MSG, and the Rangers will probably be looking like a different team when they take on the St. Louis Blues Saturday night.